What's up again, guys and gals of the movement world? Sean Mishka here, Football Beyond the Stats, week 15 of the 2021 National Football League season, and our movement play of the week. Now, this, of course, is part two of two, with our first one being the Travis Kelce walk-off winner versus the Chargers. This one being the Jonathan Taylor walk-off winner, essentially, even though there were a few plays that happened after this. But it was, for all practical intents and purposes, a walk-off winner as well. Here, as we are about to see Jonathan Taylor do his thing and really kind of make what he did in week 11 just solidify that even further. Really, what Jonathan Taylor has been doing across the entirety of the 2021 National Football League season. If you follow me on social media, you probably know I've been highly complimentary of what Taylor's movement skill set, what his toolbox is like, as well as the attuned and adaptable nature of his movement problem solving processes. So you could rewind back to week 11 if you haven't seen that one, where I actually broke down two plays of Jonathan Taylor against the Buffalo Bills on his 5-touchdown day in week 11. Now, a few key constraints here. I'm not going to get into the constraints of Jonathan Taylor all that much because I did so in week 11. The only thing I'll really make the mention here in regards to Taylor himself is right now in week 15, he's in the midst of sort of this MVP race, this most valuable player race. And of course, most people out there are fully well aware that the MVP has kind of turned into a quarterback award. But for a running back to win the award, they almost have to do something extraordinary. They have to do something special. Obviously, AD back in 2012 being the last one to have won that award after going over 2,000. So if JT here, if Jonathan Taylor can get close to that 2,000-yard mark, I think he puts himself into serious consideration, probably alongside Green Bay Packers Aaron Rodgers and Tampa Bay Buccaneer Tom Brady. With Brady sort of being up here, Rodgers being just a little bit behind, and then Jonathan Taylor, I think, at least if I were to get a vote, now I don't get one of those 50 Associated Press votes, but this guy would probably be my guy. And I think it also really kind of closely coincides with his movement skill and his movement capabilities and his movement toolbox. And of course, I become really biased then in that way. But luckily, even if he doesn't win the MVP, he might find himself being recognized here at Football Beyond the Stats in our postseason awards coming up in about a month. So we can look for those. But a few key conditional constraints here that are entering the mix on week 15 to kind of add another layer to that, which what we discussed with the Travis Kelce video. Here being 2 minutes, just over 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter now, as opposed to overtime like we saw in the Kelce situation. Both of these teams really vying and trying to solidify a playoff spot. The Patriots actually at this moment in week 15 or going into week 15 are holding down that top spot at a 9-4 record. With a loss and with a Chiefs win, which happened on Thursday night, they flip-flop spots, which is exactly what actually ended up unfolding. The Colts are sort of down that list of 7 playoff teams that are vying for their spot. So a lot at stake here, not only for each respective team and its units, but also Jonathan Taylor himself, as in just his second year in the league, he really has leapfrogged the company here and really tried to put himself in that upper echelon of National Football League superstars. The final thing that I will say is with the time of the game and with the Patriots trying to get the ball back, it's 2nd and 8 here, fourth quarter. They don't have any timeouts left. They know that the Colts are running the football. Everyone in the stadium knows that the Colts are running the football. We can see 10 men in the box for the Patriots here. And with 10 men in the box and under those constraints or conditions where everybody knows that a run is coming, it's probably the most difficult time to run the football, or one would think. Luckily for Jonathan Taylor, he not only has a movement skill set, which is able to coordinate, control, and organize a movement solution, which is able to functionally fit most movement problems or a wide variety of movement problems that will come his way. even with 10 men in the box. But also, his offensive line is a bunch of bell cows here. So he's got a good opportunity to still do something special. And every MVP candidate and every eventual MVP winner has what they refer to as their MVP moment. This could actually potentially be Jonathan Taylor's MVP moment. So when we look at this first initial movement problem for him to solve, really there's two major micro local movement problems that create this bigger global movement problem. Remember from weeks and weeks and weeks ago, and I'm sure I've said it numerous times here throughout these video versions of the movement play of the week, I'm doing that just to make it nice and neat. Okay. Doing that being kind of depicting this global movement problem with the more local or micro level. We don't know where one movement problem begins and another one ends, or ends and begins. Okay. So it's this constant intertwined, interwoven nature between problem and solution, constantly and dynamically emerging with one another. So when a problem changes, a solution or a solver reciprocally and mutually changes as well. My distinctions are only for it to be nice and easy for us to discuss this. Okay, so 10 guys in the box. We're going to have two free rushers here, two free guys, two free tacklers, and JT just goes and solves. Let's go ahead and watch this at full speed a couple times through if we could. So we see 28 doing his thing out in the open field. There's going to be a lot to talk about, even though it just looks like JT gets loose, Jonathan Taylor gets loose, and he's off to the races. Obviously, there's more there than that which what meets the eye, as there always will be when we're talking about complex movement behavior in sport. There's going to be a bunch of nuance to talk about here. Okay. Let me see if I can get to the other part of the video where we can see it from various angles. We can skip ahead through some of this celebration. You can see the entire Colts team, the entire organization knows that 28 just put the team on his shoulders. I really want to hit pause here a bunch of times, but I'm not going to do that just yet. I promise that I will do it, and I know that you guys know that I will do it. But there's some cool stuff here that we don't see from players who aren't as skillful as Taylor. Okay. And you guys, if you've been here before, you probably know some of the things that I'm going to begin to point out. Or at least I hope you do. I hope you've figured it out. Some of the themes when we talk about what is a player attuning to, what are they adapting around. We're seeing this. The broadcast booth happens to help us out and assist us right at that moment in time, as well as this constant perception action coupling cycle. And of course, with intentions being closely intertwined with that, as well as we watch Taylor here on the tail end of this 100% speed before we go to 50%. And of course, him getting and being off to the races. So now, local problem by local problem, micro problem by micro problem, however it is that you want to define that and determine it. Notice I mentioned those two free rushers, both free guys. The first thing that pops out to me with Taylor's movement that I want you guys to pay attention to is that he's in ownership speeds. He's operating at ownership speeds until he knows that it's time to hit the gas. Okay. Young backs or less skillful backs will hit the gas pedal, specifically when they see a bit of green grass, and they're going to hit the gas pedal and get themselves too sucked up into this first local movement problem and too sucked up into the potential one or two free tacklers here that just represent guys that he has to make miss, that he's got to solve the problem around if he's going to gain yards, especially on 2nd and 8. So too often guys get on their gas pedal there. And I know it seems counterintuitive to not move as fast as you possibly can. Okay, especially in the chaos and complexity that is the National Football League. But the more skillful movers are operating at maximum controllable velocity. This is what I refer to when I talk about ownership speed. This still is game speed. Okay, so but it's more functional in its nature. So you are moving in a way that allows you to pick up the information more adequately, more accurately, and make the right, and I use that in quotations there, you make the most functional decision for you based on the landscape of opportunities and affordances. Um, of course, those affordances in this case being about space, time and how much time you have, and then the behaviors of others as it unfolds. Again, remember, as I've always told you guys and tell you again, the Gibson idea of behavior affording behavior almost always applies in the National Football League movement problems. And we're going to be able to see a better view here when we go to the other view. So I'm not going to belabor too much there in that first local movement problem, but I do want you guys to see it from each perspective. Ownership speed sets up when he gets then the really most accurate. Let me get some stamps out here. Dante Hightower, okay, Devin McCourty, two of the most veteran New England Patriots, so they know the Patriot way better than everybody else on this roster. He being Taylor is taking in information of the most skillful movers on that side. Okay, both guys coming free here and filling in that gap. Man, that's the second time I've done that where I'm just starring things all over the place without going back to my mouse. You guys know that this is all emergent. Okay, so watch this again as Taylor sets this up. I don't want you to miss that right there, because what we see here is a number of different potential informational variables. Okay, interpersonal distance, it's likely when we talk about what Taylor is attuning to and adapting around, when we speculate around it at least, that he actually isn't overly sensitive to Hightower number 54 here. But most of his movement behaviors that emerge here are based on 32, Devin McCourty, as well as the position that he's in, the interpersonal distance between them, and if I could get my arrow out, where it is that he could potentially go. Okay. Straight at him, look to make a move, potentially come up with a novel movement solution, run him over, hurdle, spin, something of that nature, cut left or right to go to the left or right of McCourty. And my guess is that he knows that Hightower is back here at the second level, but he doesn't know where he is or when he's going to arrive. That would just be my hunch anyway. Okay. Again, the most attuned and adaptable movers, my speculation would be that they're able to attune to multiple information sources, multiple performers, multiple opponents at the same time. But I don't know, based on how Hightower is coming behind this traffic, if Taylor sees him until he moves on from McCourty. Again, we're just speculating here. But again, behavior affords behavior. Once he goes and executes this power cut off of that left foot and kind of takes it into a pseudo power to crossover, he then adjusts the controllability on the fly, adjusts the movement solution on the fly based on space and the behavior of 54. So let's not miss that. Again, the other view is probably going to be a little better for looking at that. So we'll do exactly that in a moment here. He hits this. I still think he's connected to McCourty, but he moves on. He hits the cut, goes from left to right, and now he takes in and realizes Hightower has filled a little bit of that space, which he thought was probably going to be a little bit more open to McCourty's left here. And Hightower just happens to fill it a bit. And that then, as we're going to see from the other view, so I shouldn't belabor the point now, relates to an adjustability in Taylor's movement actions and how it functionally fits the solution. Now he's getting up into the open field, essentially the second local micro movement problem that's going to take place here over the next 65 yards. But a few things I want you guys to be very aware of here. Even though it just looks like, I mean, he's got a ton of space, right? He's got a ton of space here, and he's got a ton of space there, obviously. Okay. In the most threatening, the most challenging source of information is actually here. The guy who's going to have the greatest likelihood of not only pursuing him, but also chasing him down, that is going to then channel how Taylor behaves, is way over here. Okay. But Jonathan Taylor knows that in the National Football League, things change quickly. They are dynamic, they are emergent. So we can't get too comfortable being comfortable. Okay. The head has to stay on a swivel. And that is one of the things that I just absolutely adore about that, which what unfolds here. Constant perception and action in an intertwined, interwoven nature at high speeds. So even at high speeds, head on a swivel, body kinematics changing to perceive to act and act to perceive. Let's not miss this because it's going to create some of our dialogue around the training prescription to potentially facilitate this type of movement behavior. Use the information about this constantly changing problem to guide your movement solution too. And watch the perception. He even looks over to his right, realizes, hey, there is nothing back there for me. But look at right here. He eyes 27 up. Like you can tell he is right here. Where is JC Jackson and where is he in relation to me? What is his interpersonal distance? How fast is he moving? What bearing angle is he moving at? All of this stuff, highly vital. But that's not enough for Jonathan Taylor. That's not enough for the most attuned mover. Watch him give this glance over his right shoulder here. Boom. He realizes someone might be coming, but it's just a quick glance. Okay. Perceive to act, act to perceive. It isn't perceiving for perceiving's sake. I know I'm usually critical about guys moving for movement's sake, like organizing and coordinating a movement that isn't functionally fit to the problem. This is deliberate and intentional perceptual pickup here to become one with the problem. Okay. It's not just perception for perception's sake. And this is something that I'd like to talk about a little bit more here, but look at this, guys and gals. I cannot emphasize enough. He actually wants to be so sure of that he contorts and turns his body. He acts to perceive. This is constant, intertwined, interwoven nature, tight coupling, perceptions, intentions, and actions. I know I'm going to harp on that point more and more and more here. I can't harp on it too much because Jonathan Taylor may be the very best doing it when we talk about that intertwined, interwoven nature of perceptions, intentions, and actions. And we can see it one more time here before we go to the other view. Become one with the problem, constant attunement, constant adaptability. And that's going to set the platform for our discussion heading forward. Let's see it from another angle. If I can find it. Okay, there we are. So now we see it from another angle. This view, remember, as I constantly talk about, we should watch every play from multiple angles and at multiple speeds if we're able to. It will allow us different vantage points, specifically when we're a third person party in this analysis process. If we don't have the ability to truly put ourselves within Jonathan Taylor's movement system, maybe have dialogue with him in regards to what he's perceiving, what he's intending to do, what he's making decisions off of, then we have to make our best guess. And the only way to do that is to put as many bits of information together for ourselves as a third party. Okay. We see these two free rushers now. These two free guys. Here's Hightower over here, moving what would be from our right to left, but from his left to right. So I think as Taylor is getting the handoff, he certainly is sensitive to the fact that either Hightower here or whoever this cat is might be another free guy that he's going to have to deal with. He also obviously is knows that he's got one guy to beat, at least in his mind, I would be my guess. One or two guys to beat. He ultimately has two. Who's going to fill this space, especially with 10 men in the box. So he has to stay sensitive first and foremost to 32, Devin McCourty. And as soon as he gets the handoff, he looks at this again, ownership speed, perceive to act, active to perceive. A few things I want to show you guys. We got gap here to the left of McCourty. We got a gap here to the right of McCourty, and between this interaction or this dyadic relationship, landscape of affordances, landscape of opportunities, at least these are the ones that are going to be more attractive. The invitation strength is going to be higher. I mean, ultimately, there's any number of ways that the more adaptable movers, imagine a Barry Sanders here in this situation. Like he could go, over here to bounce it outside. He might even end up going to the right, but we can start to constrain this. We can start to channel it, limit opportunities or limit affordances based on what we think could potentially unfold. And of course, now with McCourty, Jonathan Taylor is trying to perceive or detect information about what are these respective gaps, how big are they for me to go left or right, how could I move to go left or right, what speed, how do I control this movement solution essentially? And that's not the only bits of information that are going to be vital here, right? We know that the interpersonal distance and how that's changing based on how fast McCourty is coming and where McCourty is going to intersect, essentially time to contact with Taylor. All those things are going to make a difference. And then finally, the orientation, the body orientation, the movement kinematics of McCourty are all going to serve to combine in channeling the movement solution that we see from Jonathan Taylor. But as we see his connection here to it, and as we see him set this up, and he throws this left foot into the ground in this power cut type of fashion, he then, as we look to his helmet, he's thinking, okay, I'm probably, so we can see him leaning to that left loaded coil, but his head starts to turn as if he's going to go upfield to McCourty's left, knowing full well that we have Hightower also free, entering and filling that space. So what you're going to find if you watch closely here from Jonathan Taylor is in the midst of this, as he leans from left to right and as he's about to push to go upfield, to go straight down the center and the funnel of these hashes, he has to adjust. And he has to adjust because 54 fills that gap. Watch his movement actions, his being Taylor. And he throws that foot a little bit tighter up underneath him as 54 enters the mix. Perceive to act, act to perceive, information to guide that movement action. Guys and gals, this is special stuff. Okay. And it really excites me and invigorates me, as you could probably imagine. That adaptability. We're talking about flexible, adjustable adaptability within the movement solutions. Okay. Do not miss this. As I always say, there are layers to this and there are levels to this. And Jonathan Taylor right now is operating at the very highest of level of this. Okay. When we talk about coordination and we talk about control, we talk about the organization of a functional movement solution, we're seeing it right here in living color in front of us. Okay. If I could keep hitting play at the right times. Okay. Look at that movement solution. And now, once we get here, ready to perceive, ready to act, this now is speed, linear speed in context. Okay. What do I mean in context? It's about how this movement solution is matched to fit the problem. It isn't about stopwatch speed anymore, even though Jonathan Taylor is fast on a stopwatch at the NFL Combine 4.4. We see that it's about speed regulated by the information in the unfolding context. But let's not miss his head turn and then ultimately the body turn. Left glances over his right shoulder. Just a quick glance, just a short, quick glance, but it's enough to realize nobody's back here, no threats to worry about. You can see he kind of thinks about it as an afterthought. Quickly glances, nobody's there. Now I can attend specifically just right here to JC Jackson, who is going to be trying to pursue at this angle, but we see that Jonathan Taylor uses it. These converging paths, he constantly picks up that information, okay, and allows it to change his path. And JC Jackson is no joke. Look at him close space. And that's the thing. Most people are going to look at this and they're going to say, Sean, maybe if he wouldn't have turned his body, JC Jackson wouldn't have closed ground, wouldn't have caught up. But I don't think we can say that. I think what we can say is that we have a guy who just wants to make sure that he has such accurate information detection, meaning information detection, aka perception. So he wants to make sure that his attunement is so sensitive to that which what is unfolding. He actually takes the time, turns his body, contorts, gets an accurate and updated online perceptual control of his movement solutions. Okay. Really without missing a beat here. You can see there are some times that he right there, he veers a bit as he knows, like, I got to give myself, I got to create a little extra space. And you see him veer right here to his right. We'll see it right now. He starts to veer more to his right, knowing that Jackson may have a chance to catch him. The only way for him to do exactly that and to go on that path would be for him to pick up that accurate information about JC Jackson's path. And if Jonathan Taylor was looking straight ahead, and you have a guy who might be able to hawk you down in a JC Jackson, who, as we can tell, can scoot here. If Jonathan Taylor was looking straight ahead, their paths may converge much earlier, or he might only be able to kinesthetically feel him in his information space when it's too late, or when it's before it's too late, I should say. After it's too late. Goodness gracious, I'm all over the place here. But anyways, what we find is Jonathan Taylor, I don't want to miss any of this. Get way too excited about this. Even though you can tell I've seen this a few times through. But guys and gals, again, this, both aspects, both local movement problems, both micro movement problems, perceive to act, act to perceive, attunement and adaptability. I know I sound like a broken record, but I think, again, like we saw in week 11 from Jonathan Taylor, we see it yet again. And look at that. He is all about, I want to make sure that I have the most accurate information detection as I possibly can get. Let me talk about a few things here, specifically with our training prescription or our facilitation. And I think we're going to be able to do that if we have this view up. So to become one with the problem, or to facilitate a mover who's able to coordinate, control, and organize movement solutions, perceptions, cognitions, and actions. So what information they're picking up, what decisions they're making, and how they're adapting their actions in similar fashions of this. How do we go about doing it? Again, like with the Kelsey play, I think we have to think about these 1v2 type of scenarios or situations. With Kelsey, it was catching a ball and turning to the problem, having his back to the problem and then turning to it. Here we have a guy moving at it and operating at a certain velocity, a certain speed, and solving a movement problem that contains two opponents in a given workspace. Okay. We do a lot of this, or I do a lot of this in my learning environments. Okay. I will set up a workspace that may be, let's just, if it looked like so, okay. Maybe it's 5 yards wide. Maybe I will go up to usually probably 5 to 10 yards wide in its width or in its workspace size. And I will have a guy, such as we do with McCourty here, who's coming straight down that funnel, straight down that pipe. And then have a guy such as Hightower enter from right to left, or left to right. Okay, I might have a guy over here instead as well. So as this guy, Taylor, enters the workspace, again, maybe it's 5 yards wide and maybe it's 10 yards wide, I do continually change, dynamically change. No two problems the same, meaning no two solutions the same, constantly changing workspace size, particularly width in this case, and opponent start position. Hightower in this case coming from outside the problem, might have him again come from the right side, potentially maybe come from the left side. Change up the problem frequently. Have this guy, so McCourty in this case, or the free safety, both these guys are coming free. Okay. Moving in this workspace size. I might have other opponents or teammates in the space, but I'm talking about something you can do really simply to facilitate movement skill with changing workspaces, constantly changing where the players, the opponents in particular, are starting, changing how this guy is starting. Maybe he's starting face up to the problem. Maybe he's starting from the right side of the activity. So he would be going in this type of direction. Maybe he's starting straight down the funnel. Maybe he's starting from right to left, left to right. You hopefully got the drill there. Okay. And as we do that, then it will constantly set a dynamic movement problem to problem for that player to solve. So again, they will have to become sensitive and attuned to behaviors of opponents, interpersonal distances, space and gaps to left or right, and how those particular opponents are moving and how I myself as the skilled mover entering this space should move. Yeah, so that would be training prescription number one, changing workspace, changing positions. Let me advance here. Now, once he gets into the open field, another thing that we talked about, obviously with the Travis Kelce play, another thing we've talked about really frequently here, having chasing players when we're working on linear speed. Work on speed in context. We always move fastest when we're being chased. Not always, but we want to make sure that we can move our fastest if and when we're being chased, right? And we still have to be able to perceive to act and act to perceive, like we see from Taylor. Require players to perceive what's behind them or coming from angles, like we see with the JC Jackson situation converging into Taylor's pass. Require players to perceive when they're moving at higher speeds, and they will start to innately begin to do it in emergent fashions. And with this really easy training prescription, have guys come from different distances, have them have to move to different distances. So I think at this point, what Jonathan Taylor has to go 50, 55, 60 yards. Okay. But with guys converging from left to right, maybe they don't know which way which side they're starting on, the opponent that is. They're starting from 5 yards back behind, different angles. Really simple, guys and gals, to incorporate this type of movement problem into your training environments immediately. There literally is no excuse for working on linear speed without chasers. Zero excuse for doing it. Change pass, require guys to continue to perceive, change the speeds. So if a guy's moving at different distances, obviously the speeds are going to change significantly there. And I said pass, change speeds, change positions they're coming from, and how far. So in the intentional goal of that, what they have to execute across. But like with the Kelce play, sometimes have people in front as well when we have those chasers. Okay. I apologize for the funky lighting. Obviously, it's pretty late in the evening here in Minnesota, very dark. So I'm working on a bunch of lamps or working with a bunch of lamps and still sporting my Christmas sweater. Movement plays of the week, both of them for week 15 here of the 2021 National Football League season. Obviously, like I always mention, if you like this video, please hit the like button. That will help me know that you're listening. If there's questions, concerns, thoughts, ideas, considerations, things you want me to cover, make sure you put them in the comments section or reach out to me on Twitter or on email. And finally, if you would, be so generous, hit subscribe, give me that little Christmas gift here as we continue to unpack these movement plays of the week in 2021 and probably beyond in this version. As I mentioned in the first video, obviously with Christmas week coming up here, continue to study the movement behavior of the football's most dexterous performers under these changing constraints and conditions now that we're seeing, and when we get to the tail end of the National Football League season. Guys, I hope you all have obviously a happy holiday season, a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. Till week 16, this is Sean Mishka, Football Beyond the Stats, and our movement play of the week. See you guys soon.